Everyone thought he was a level 1 loser, but he turns out to be the strongest hero in this world after saving a bunch of pretty girls. Flio used to be a normal trader in a fantasy world where people treated demihumans as slaves, but he was built different and treated them with respect, even paying them a fair wage for their work. For this reason, the other traders hated him, but one day, while loading goods in his wagon, he suddenly gets transported to a completely new world. He looks around surprised to see a large number of hooded men, congratulating each other for finally summoning the hero, and the Pope tells a surprised Flio that they have been trying to summon a hero because the demon army is threatening to destroy their kingdom completely. Before he could even say anything, a maid wearing a furry uniform walks up the pedestal and places a magical crystal in front of him. The Pope claims that because all the heroes are level 1 when they enter this world, the gods give them overpowered abilities which can never be gained by a normal human being. Suddenly, the stats appear in front of him, and to their absolute horror, he has below-average stats along the board and doesn't even have a single special ability. Suddenly, on the other pedestal, another hero was called, whose stats turned out to be 999. Everyone gets on their knees to gobble his whiner and start celebrating, while the blonde hero looks at Flio and laughs at his pathetic level. The king is informed, who immediately starts showering the hero with presents and officially names him the savior. While Flio looks out the balcony, realizing that he disappointed this people just like I disappoint my parents. He decides to talk to them so that he can be sent back to his own world. But the next morning, he is packed into a carriage forcefully and is sent away from the capital. He remembers how the Pope told him that the portal through which he entered this world has been closed now, and there is no other way for him to return back. Because of this, the king has decided to grant him a piece of land in a faraway forest where no one lives, but tells him that he is not supposed to return back to the capital ever again, or tell anyone that he is from another world. While traveling, Flio tries to talk to the lizardman person, but he tells him to shut up as no one wants to talk to losers. Flio sleeps, eats, and drinks inside of the wagon for a solid 20 days, after which they finally reach the mysterious forest. He comes out to see a pretty landscape and thinks that he might be able to live here, while the lizardman hands him a bag. Before leaving, however, the lizardman advises him to run away from here as soon as possible, because this forest is supposed to be the stronghold for some very strong demon generals. After that, he leaves without saying a word, leaving Flio alone, who checks the magic bag to find it has some money, food, and other essentials, including a sword. Excitedly, he pulls out the sword, which looks very fancy with its golden handle and sharp blade, when suddenly some slimes pull up to the hood behind him. He ignores them at first as slimes are not aggressive, but to his surprise the purple monsters immediately attack him, forcing him to defend himself with the sword as he slashes them to pieces. Immediately after, he notices that the sword was made in China and has already shattered just by this. Suddenly a screen pops up, claiming that his level has increased, and he checks his stats only to be shocked to see all of his abilities are now SS ranked. This confuses him, but before he could do, Alexa pops up and starts telling him that she will guide him. She claims that he has unlocked various magic spells, which completely takes him by surprise. Before he could do anything, she also tells him that the magic bag that he got has a GPS tracker alongside a monster bait, which will make the monsters attack him. This makes him realize that the king sent him here as he wanted him to get killed off in the forest without anyone noticing it. To his surprise, Alexa tells him that she can remove all these spells from the bag, and Flio gives his affirmation. After removing the curses from the bag, he wanders around and was about to enter the forest, when Alexa warns him that there is a poisonous gas secreted by the demons inside the entire forest which causes problems for humans and demi-humans, and advises him not to enter. She then asks whether he wants to purify the forest, and after Flio says, a huge light blast occurs, which sweeps over the entire forest and purifies it. While Flio was still confused, a bunch of screens pop up, which reminds me of the virus I got after clicking on links about finding MILFs in my area. Meanwhile, back at the kingdom, the princess tells her old dad that what he did was extremely unhinged and Flio will definitely die inside the forest. His ugly dad doesn't care about that at all and calls him a piece of trash, when one of the mages walks up to him and claims that an S-ranked purification magic was used inside the kingdom. The king is overjoyed as he thinks that it has been activated by the blondie who he sent to fight the demon army, but to his surprise, the mage tells him that the magic was not activated in the south where Blondie is, but to the north inside the mysterious forest. Back in the forest, the pop-ups finally end, and Alexa tells Flio that his current level is 367, which means that he is basically a god on this planet. Flio doesn't care about being a god, but doesn't want to live alone either, so Alexa advises him to shapeshift and commit identity theft, which this degenerate agrees to. At first Alexa turns him into a thick-thighed girl, but he realizes that he is not a good bottom, so he changes the gender back to a man that no one has seen before. He decides to head back to the capital to have some fun, when Alexa tells him that he can use teleportation magic. He agrees to do that and is immediately teleported to the city, which really surprises him. He then tries to see whether this magic could teleport him to his original world, but fails, so he enters the city to get a drink and forget his sadness. He decides to approach the Adventurers Guild first to register himself, and the receptionist tells him about all the ranks different adventurers have before giving him his identification card, which has rank E written on it. He takes the tag and searches the notice board for any quests, when he notices a lowly asking the adventurers to escort her to the mysterious forest where her parents live. Sadly, none of the adventurers agree to it, as she doesn't have a lot of money and because the mysterious forest is very deadly. Flio decides to try his luck with the lowly and tells her that he is willing to take her back to the mysterious forest, and he won't even take his money as he knows teleportation magic. This shocks every single person present in the guild, and Flio realizes that teleportation magic must be a very high-ranked magic which only the top sorcerers could do. Suddenly, the FBI pulls up and a blonde bimbo puts her sword to his throat asking how many children are in his basement. The witch of the group claims that he must be a trafficker while the lowly hides behind Muscle Mommy. Flio immediately tells them that he is just an adventurer, and he stopped putting children in his basement ever since he got caught in his original world. The girls don't believe him and take him to an empty alleyway before telling him to show them the teleportation magic he was talking about, before promising that if he tries to run away, she will chop him to pieces. Flio turns around and activates teleportation magic, transporting all of them to the mysterious forest, which surprises all of them as they confirm the location on the map. The witch asks why is he still E rank, while the blondie goes down on her knees and apologizes for calling him a PDF file. The girl goes near the forest and notices that all the poisonous gases are gone. Flio was about to tell her that he purified it, when Alexa warns him that the girl is a demon. Suddenly, Blondie walks in front of him and draws her sword at the little girl, while Muscle Mommy, the archer, and the witch all get ready to attack. Without wasting any time, Blondie tells the lowly to reveal her true colors, and informs Flio that the guild put up a notice that a mysterious lowly has been trying to lure people to go into the mysterious forest. The archer claims that this forest is the home of a demon general, which makes it highly suspicious, while the blondie keeps pushing her sword towards her, making her cry. Suddenly, the expressions change, and the lowly starts smiling viciously, claiming that they all will die before her fangs grow, and she starts transforming into a demon to everyone's surprise. The lowly turned out to be a huge wolf demon called Fen, who is one of the demon army's 4 generals. She claims that the Demon King sent her to keep an eye on the adventurers, and she can't let anyone know who she is, so they have to die. Immediately, the entire area gets covered with a poisonous gas, while all the girls collapse on the ground in a very weakened state while Flio tries to help Blondie up. Fen is surprised to see that Flio is unaffected, but decides to deal with him later and attacks Blondie, only for Flio to save her at the last moment. He realizes that he can't run away while protecting all of them, so he tells Alexa to teleport all of the girls back to the capital, which saves their lives. Flio then gets ready for a fight using all the spells that he has at his disposal to try and win. Fen immediately rushes in for an attack, but Flio immediately uses instant transmission to dodge the attack and appears behind her. Fen immediately turns around and tries to strike him down with her sharp claws, but Flio uses earth magic and creates a wall which protects him from the attack. He immediately follows through with a wind attack, throwing her up in the air. Realizing that Flio is not weak, Fen quickly teleports out of the way and tries to land a surprise attack on him, but his reactions are quicker and is able to use his gravitation spell on her, forcing her to the ground, while she is completely stunned as she has never seen this magic before. He realizes that he needs to capture her right now, but he has no idea which spell to use. Thankfully, Alexa pops up and recommends him to use the slavery magic, which will force Fen to follow all of his orders, but he is not a Confederate and refuses to use the spell. Meanwhile, Fen tries to use a spell to escape, but Alexa nullifies the spell, while telling Flio to use the slavery spell. He refuses again, while Fen uses the teleportation magic only to fail once again. Flio struggles with the idea to use a spell to force someone into slavery, as he hated it in the previous world as well, but Alexa tells him that this is the only way. While this is happening, Fen continues to use spell after spell to escape this gravity magic, but fails again and again to the point where she falls over defeated and exhausted as she has no more magic left inside of her. She urges him to kill her as she has no way of surviving once his mana has been drained, but Flio tells him that he has no intentions of killing anyone and dispels the gravity magic. This surprises her as she stands up to face him and claims that she is a demon warrior who has fought against and killed several humans, so why would he let her live? He looks at her gently and responds that it doesn't matter to him whether she is a monster, because he will never attack or kill an enemy who has surrendered already. This surprises her and she changes back into her human lowly form, but without any clothes. Like a gentleman, Flio immediately puts his cloak on here and asks her to promise that she won't attack humans for no reason anymore. He then starts looking in his bag for some clothes, when he turns around to see that she has fallen over into a state of deep sleep as her mana is depleted completely. He smiles and puts her in a tent, and by the time evening comes, he lights a fire and starts checking all the different magic spells he has and remembers how people thought he was lying about being able to use teleportation magic. After a while, Fen finally wakes up and comes out to greet him, asking whether he used healing magic on her to replenish her mana. He smiles and tells her that she is safe, and she replies that it would have been totally valid if she was already dead by now, but because he spared her life, she owes everything she has to him and promises to never hurt humans again without any reason. He smiles and thanks her, but she isn't done and claims that she also owes his life to him, and will act as his slave from now on. He tells her that he doesn't need any slaves, which saddens her, and she grows her claws back, claiming that her life will have no meaning if she can't serve him, and tries to delete herself. Flio begs her to stop and claims that she can stay with him as long as she wants, which immediately makes her happy. A little while later, he tells her his story about how he is not from this world and was actually teleported here without his will as a hero candidate, but because he was super weak with no special skills. He was tossed aside by the king and left in the forest to die, as they didn't know how to send him back home. He then changes her appearance back to normal to show her how he actually looks, and tells her that he is technically banished from the kingdom and will have to constantly keep moving, which will be very problematic and stressful for her if she decides to follow him. She reassures him that she will stay by his side no matter what and pledges her life and loyalty to him, pleading with him to let her stay with him. Flio is shocked at this, but gladly accepts her proposal, which makes Flio really happy, and she hugs him tightly. Meanwhile, inside the castle, the hero comes back to report a massive loss against the demon army to the king, and when the king asks how did so many knights get wiped out in a single battle, he starts blaming him for giving him knights that were so weak that they immediately broke rank and started running here and there at the sight of a single demon. He then tells the king to be thankful for the knights that were able to survive because of him and storms out of the court. Following this, the king turns towards one of the knights and asks what actually happened at the battlefield. The knight paints a totally different story, claiming that the hero was a massive coward and was hiding behind the ranks of the knights even though he was the strongest. Moreover, the moment strong demons started attacking, he decided to run away, while telling the knights to cover his retreat. The king holds his head in disbelief, not knowing how to save his kingdom, while the hero walks back to his chambers, angry at himself for not getting any stronger even after trying so much. The next morning, Flio takes Fen back into the city where they walk through the market and decide to act as husband and wife to avoid causing unnecessary suspicion. They soon head out into the Adventurers Guild to get Fen registered so that they can take on some quest and earn money. She soon gets her adventurer's tag, which makes her really happy because it's the same rank that Flio has. They head over to the notice board to get a quest, when an emergency quest is announced by the receptionist. According to her, a lot of monsters have been seen in the forests near the city, and they seem to be moving towards the town to destroy it. Everyone gets scared as the monsters being this close to the city means that the hero failed to destroy them. The receptionist also announces that they will pay 10 times the usual amount for each monster killed. Flio claims that the pay is pretty good, but they should skip fighting these monsters as they sound strong. Fen looks at him confused and tells him that they are no match against him, but he doesn't believe her, claiming that even the hero wasn't able to defeat them. Fen tells him that if he won't come then she will go alone and kill those monsters, and if she can kill them, then Flio can kill them as well because he is stronger than her. He agrees, and they teleport towards the forest where they find an empty house which the guild has set up as their base. They were about to go in when they hear a scream from the other direction, and immediately head towards it, only to find the same group of girls that Flio saved before, and even this time they are completely surrounded. Fen looks at them and tells Flio that they are pathetically weak, while one of the monsters try to attack the muscle mommy who tries to fight with an injured arm but gets thrown back. Before the monster can finish her off though, Flio uses his lightning magic to utterly fry the beast, saving her life. One of the monsters rush towards the witch who is saved by Fen, who crushes it in a single hit. After defeating the remaining monsters, the Lady Knight thanks Flio for saving their lives once again. But suddenly another monster appears behind Fen and was about to attack her. But she turns around and gives him a death glare which scares the beast as it starts begging for mercy, shocking everyone. Fen finds him cute and decides to keep him as a pet, so Flio uses his magic to put a collar on him and changes him to look like a small dog rabbit looking abomination. Later that day they head inside the house, where the Night Lady introduces herself as Bali, while the small redhead is named Archer, and the lowly with the hat is named the Witch. She asks him to teach them how to fight as ever since the hero's defeat. He is refusing to fight against the demons because he needs a capable right-hand man who is strong enough to fight the monsters. So the king has told every knight to become strong enough to take down one of the monsters alone. Fen immediately gets angry and jealous at this proposition as she doesn't want to share Flio, but he immediately tells everyone that Fen is her wife, which makes her really happy, and she tells Flio that he should let them stay here in the house and train them, which makes the ladies really happy as they get ready for their training sessions starting the next day. The next morning, Flio wakes up to find Rise already waiting for him near his bed. He gets a bit scandalized but remembers that last night Rise wanted to sleep with him in the same bed because they are husband and wife. But Flio got flustered and told her that there are a lot of formalities that they have to do to complete a marriage. Rise looks disappointed and claims that beast people can simply marry whoever they want whenever they want without any preparations. Flio tells her that he will sleep outside, but Rise tells him that if the other girls watch them sleeping separately, they might get suspicious about their supposed marital relationship. Hearing this, Flio has no option but to sleep in the same room with her, but he decides to keep 2 separate beds like my parents before their divorce. Rise starts telling him to change out of his old clothes, when Bali enters their room without knocking like a mannerless kid, and gets scandalized by the position the two were in and runs away without saying a word. After that they head out to do some training, but it doesn't seem to be going too well. Bali stands in front of the boar but starts introducing herself instead of attacking, which the boar takes advantage of and rushes to attack, forcing her to flee. Muscle Mommy comes in for the save and swings her giant sword, but misses the strike completely, enraging the boar even more. Rise immediately tells the witch to use her magic shield, which she does successfully, while the archer shoots arrows at the beast doing almost 0 damage. By that time even the witch's mana wears off and the shield disappears, giving the boar a clear way to attack. Flio and Rise watch from afar as the squad of girls run around pathetically while the boar chases them. Later that day, Flio arranges some beds so that the girls can sleep comfortably on fluffy beds, which seems to be a welcome decision. They then head down towards the kitchen, only to find huge chunks of raw meat placed on each plate on the table, while Rise cheerfully tells Flio that she extracted this meat from the boar hunt earlier and prepared luxurious slices for each of them as a celebration for their new homes. Flio tells her that they usually eat cooked meat instead of uncooked meat, so Rise offers to grill it for them, but Flio doesn't trust her with the food and tells her to relax while he cooks them some food. With the help of Bali, he puts an amazing spread for everyone on the table, complete with salads, rice, and beautifully cooked steak. Rise seems to get jealous while Flio comments on how good Bali cooks, who claims that her family belongs to the nobility, but they lost most of their money and prestige, so she always had to cook for herself, and ended up enjoying the process. Everyone starts eating, commenting on how good the dishes taste, but Rise is still skeptical as she thinks fresh meat tastes best when raw, and plants and leaves are the food of weak animals who get killed by stronger beasts. Flio encourages her to try some salad, and to her surprise, she ends up liking it a lot. After that she tries the steak and her entire world turns upside down as she has never had such a tender and juicy piece of meat with a golden brown crust. She downplays how good the food was and promises everyone that she will cook food that's even better than this next time. Later that day, Flio and Rise visit the capital to sell the boar demons that they hunted down. And because the boars are considered as class of demons, everyone is surprised because Flio is supposed to be a newbie and not an S-rank hero. Flio realizes that they will have to tone down the amount of strong monsters they kill to avoid suspicions, and Rise agrees. She then tells Flio that she needs to go into the town for some personal errand and will meet him later. Flio bids goodbye to her as he gets called by a furry who asks whether they can talk alone. Flio doesn't kink shame anyone, so he goes alongside the furry into a different room, where the man tells him that his achievements have been a topic of discussion amongst the people of this kingdom. According to him, even the king got to know about him and his exploits and want to grant him the position of an honorary knight, which is one of the highest honors a man of common descent can achieve. The king wants him to serve under the hero and protect the kingdom from the demons. Flio doesn't even have to think about it, and immediately declines the offer, claiming that he is happy living his life as is and has no intentions of joining the fight against the demons. This surprises the furry, but Flio doesn't care and comes out of the guild by the time the sun starts setting. He finds Rise waiting for him, covered in ash and beaten up, which worries him, and he asks whether a demon attacked her. She tells her that it was nothing, whereas in truth, she ended up going to a cooking class that she saw a poster about and tried learning how to cook. Unfortunately, she just doesn't have the aptitude for cooking and ended up always messing things up, and even blew up the entire class with her magic when she tried to get a flame. After that, 1 month passes by without much happening, but the king's men always come to his house, time to time asking whether he would want to join the hero's party to battle against the demons, but every time Flio refuses. After that, he checks onto Muscle Mommy, who got interested in farming and created a small garden with the help of the doggy and was able to successfully grow fresh produce, but because of that, she basically stopped training to fight. Meanwhile, Rise tries to get the fear of shooting a living thing out of the archer, as she only practices with a wooden target. Rise tries to use the tender meat of the beast chicken as a motivation, but it fails. On the other hand, the witch still has very low amounts of mana, so Flio gives her a magical ring that will boost her mana pool. He tells her to try it out for the day and let him know whether it is helpful. She was going to put it on her ring finger while thinking about Flio, but Rise scares her straight by threatening to cut her hand off if she tries to put it on the ring finger. Bali as well tries pulling the helpless girl act, screaming for Flio to help, but Rise immediately chops the monster in half, telling Bali to drop the act before she drops her. Bali claims that she doesn't know what she is talking about, but Rise tells her that she is simply trying to act weak in front of Flio and hoping that he will come to save her like a knight in shining armor. She tells him to keep her eyes off of her husband, when suddenly she looks around, as she feels someone is spying on them, but doesn't see anyone. Later that afternoon, they all sit down on the table to have food that was totally made by Rise. They all are surprised to see how big of a step up this is compared to a piece of raw meat and ask whether she used magic or whether she robbed a restaurant. Rise calmly tells them that she cooked all of this by herself, and explains that she has been taking cooking classes for the past month in the capital. Even though she was terrible at first, she kept trying, and through continuous practice, she was finally able to produce something edible. They all try it and love the flavor, but Rise is mostly interested in the thoughts of Flio. She watches him closely as he takes a bite and immediately tells her that the food is amazing and he can eat the entire pot by himself. This really makes her happy as she thanks him, but unbeknownst to them, a spy was keeping an eye on them through the window. The furry beast recognizes Rise and is confused as to why she is living amongst the humans and wonders whether she is hatching a plan to kill the hero. But before she could report anything back to the Demon King, Rise ends up appearing behind her, which scares the Bagesis out of her. She ends up taking the spy inside, whose name is Ulmana, and Flio offers her some tea. She seems to be completely taken off guard as she thanks them for the tea and burns her tongue immediately. Rise immediately comes down to business and asks what the hell is Demon King's personal assistant doing in this forest. Ulmana tells her that a lot of demons died in this area, so she came to investigate and ended up finding her. Rise tells her that the demons were killed by her when they attacked, and that she is now living happily with Flio, who also happens to be her husband. Ulmana is surprised at this revelation, but Rise immediately asks whether she wants to cause trouble for them. Ulmana gets scared and tells her that she has no such intentions and burns her tongue once again. She is unable to understand how a human like Flio is so calm in the presence of a demon, and tries to check his stats but fails. She then asks Rise whether she knows anything about what happened in the northern forest, as there are no demons alive there anymore. Flio looks at her and tells her that he cast a purification magic on the forest, but didn't know that it will kill the demons, and apologizes. Almana is beyond shocked and asks whether he is really the one who cast the purification magic, and then she turns to Rise asking whether she knew about it. She claims that Rise's brother was also in the forest when this happened and ended up dying because of Flio. Rise's face turns dark as she tells Almana to shut her mouth. Flio looks at Rise and asks whether she knew he killed her brother. She tells them that her brother was a wolf warrior and the worst thing to do would be to mourn his death. Moreover, he was one of the 4 generals of the Demon King army and should have known better how to deal with this situation. Rise looks at Flio and tells him that it doesn't change her feelings for him even a bit, as she fell in love with him because he was strong, but now she learned how kind he is and loves him even more. The girls end up overhearing this, and the witch faints as she realizes that Rise is actually the legendary wolf that almost killed them. Almana, on the other hand, simply gets up and asks Flio to spar with her, and he agrees. Once outside, their battle starts and Almana immediately jumps up before using a poison attack on him, but at the same time casts a magic circle to hurt Rise. This enrages Flio, who dispels both of her attacks with the click of his fingers and uses a crucifixion magic to trap her in the air, as he threatens her never to attack Rise again and tells her to leave. The next morning, they hear a loud commotion and run outside, only to see Almana on top of a huge dragon army, flying towards them to take revenge. Instead of getting scared though, Flio gets really excited as he has never seen a dragon before and always wanted a dragon scale. He immediately uses his lightning magic and brings down almost all of the dragons to the ground completely barbecued, while Almana stands there in disbelief as how can someone dismantle the strongest force of the demon army alone. Muscle Mommy wonders whether she could have thrown a hoe at them and gotten the title of Dragon Slayer, and Flio tells him it's not too late to try. She throws her hoe at one of the fleeing dragons, and Flio uses his boost magic on it, which kills the dragon in an instant, giving her the title of Dragon Slayer. He immediately gets surrounded by the rest of the girls, asking him to help them as well, but he claims that the dragons are already gone and he can't do anything now. Almana runs away immediately while the Demon King watches all this from his castle and decides to head out there in person to deal with this annoying adventurer and kill him and the traitor Rise himself. The next morning, the girls are still huddled around Muscle Mommy as they can't take their eyes off the title of the Dragon Slayer. The witch even brings back the hoe that killed the dragon as a souvenir. While they were ogling at the title, Bali walks outside the house and tells them that she is heading off into the forest to kill some more monsters. The girls are pretty impressed at her resilience, as she has been going to the forest to kill monsters for a while now, but her strength hasn't increased much. Even after this, she doesn't lose hope and goes to train every single day. In reality, however, Bali simply goes to the forest and pretends like it doesn't matter to her that her powers aren't increasing. She seems very annoyed by the fact that she stays weak no matter what she does, and also that she wasn't able to get the title of the Dragon Slayer. According to her, the title of a Dragon Slayer can increase your standing from the level of a commoner to a noble in an instant because of its prestige. She feels so pissed because if she was fast enough, she could have also taken Flio's help to kill a dragon and get the title, which would have helped her family become nobles once again like they were when she was young. While she was standing there frustrated, a man walks behind her and asks whether she knows about a couple that live in the forest. She immediately gets a little suspicious, as even though the forest is crawling with deadly monsters, this guy seems to be completely unbothered and is not even wearing armor. She replies by saying that she does know the couple and asks whether he is an acquaintance of the husband or the wife. He immediately replies wife, at which point she draws her sword and puts it at his throat. She tells him that Rise belonged to the demon army, which means that he is also a demon. She asks what the hell do they want from her and claims that she is not interested in going back. The man, however, tells her that he is here just to talk. Bali doesn't want to hear anything but takes her sword back and tells him that she can carry a message but won't lead them to the cottage. He ends up agreeing and tells her to ask Rise whether she wants to have some tea and talk for the old time's sake, and leaves. Bali thinks about how weird this guy was when Rise and Flio appear from the forest looking worried. They ask whether she is okay and she replies she is fine and was just talking to some lowly demon. She asks why are they here, and Flio replies that he was worried because according to his barrier, the Demon King himself entered the area and was talking to someone. Bali immediately gets scared and starts whimpering about how the Demon King will definitely kill her now, but Flio somehow calms her down and they all go back to the cottage. The next morning everything seems to be back to normal, but Rise answers the door only to see the Demon Lord standing there. She asks what the hell does he want from her, but Flio tells her that there is no need for any violence and they can all talk. The Demon Lord introduces himself as Gaz and wonders why this human who knows that he is the king of the demons, not scared at all. They all head inside when they meet Bali, who was happily coming out of her room. The moment she spots the Demon Lord, she gets terrified again. They all sit down in the guest room where Flio offers him some tea and asks what he wants to talk about. Rise immediately speaks up saying that she doesn't want to go back to the army and if he is here to take revenge for them beating up the cat girl, but he tells her that he has no such intentions. He turns his attention towards Flio and asks him to join the demon army. This catches Flio off guard, but he speaks up and tells him that he is not interested in playing sides in the war. The Demon Lord thinks about it and asks how is he able to hide out here in the forest because with the level of power that he has, the king must want him on his side. Flio, however, defends his position by saying that he doesn't have to fight for the side of humans just because he is a human as well, and he doesn't even know why the hell is the war happening, because he came here from a different world. The Demon Lord claims that the battle started 500 years ago, when a person from a different world came here and became the first Demon Lord. He was extremely powerful, and noticed that the humans treat the demons as second-class citizens, so he raised a voice and a lot of demons followed him, resulting in a massive war. Ever since then, the Demon Lords have kept fighting the humans over one matter or another, but he claims that he doesn't really have any ambitions to kill all humans or to take control of the world. At that very moment, his aura changes, and with extreme anger as mana overflows out of him, he shouts that even though all he wants to do is live peacefully, if the humans target the demons and kill them, he will not stand by and watch like an incompetent jackass. He then turns to Flio again, hoping that this would intimidate him, and asks whether he would still want to join the Demon King army, but Flio refuses once more while sipping his tea. The Demon Lord calms down and starts smiling at the fact that this mere human is so stubborn and fearless, and claims that this must be the reason the king couldn't force him to his side either. He stands up and claims that he is not done yet and will come again soon before leaving. The other girls enter the room and check up on Bali, who was sitting as if nothing happened, only to realize that she has gotten knocked out by fear while she was sitting. Bali finally wakes up the next morning and comes down to wash her face, but the moment she enters the kitchen, she spots the Demon King dining with Rise and Flio. She gets terrified once again, while the Demon King, who seems interested in her, asks her to join them. She immediately tells him that she is not dressed properly and runs away. The next day she goes outside in full gear only to find the Demon King waiting for her, asking whether she would like to go on a walk with him, but she runs away while saying that she needs to practice. A couple of days pass by and once again, while she was overlooking the farms, the Demon Lord appears to pass some time with her, but she runs away again. Meanwhile, inside the kingdom, the reports of a certain demon visiting Flio's cottage has been spread, and the king seems pissed beyond belief as he shouts that first Flio refused to help them, and now he is also joining the opposite side. He immediately commands them to mobilize the army and destroy Flio's home and his entire party. Before that could happen though, the princess intervenes and asks whether doing this is beneficial, as he could be wrong about Flio, and he could be rejecting the advances from the demon army. She claims that if they go to destroy him, it will simply force them to join the demon army for good. She advises that they should calmly talk to Flio and hope that he chooses to side with them. The king calls her an idiot and tells her to head back to the kitchen where she belongs, as they can't think with emotions right now. The blonde hero walks up and tells the king to get him some troops and promises to go and talk to Flio. He claims that if Flio takes their side just by talking, it's fine, but if it isn't, he will simply destroy all of them. The next morning, Rise and Flio were sitting on the breakfast table where Rise asks whether he is not joining either side because she is a demon and he doesn't want to kill her kin. Flio replies that it's one of the reasons, but at the same time he just doesn't think that the demons are wrong or evil by any sense of the imagination. Before they could continue their talks, the archer runs in, claiming that the entire army is here. Rise thinks that the Demon Lord is trying to attack and gets worried, But the moment they exit the house, they are shocked to see that they are surrounded by the army of the kingdom, and the hero is riding at their head with his flamboyant attitude and his cocky nature. He straight up walks up to Flio and tells him that he has come here to give him two choices. Either he joins the side of humanity and helps them fight against the Demon King, in which case they will reward him and excuse the fact that he refused to join them before, or he can simply refuse to join the side of humanity, in which case he will be considered a traitor to their race, and they will simply destroy him on the assumption that he is an accomplice to the Demon King. Flio calmly replies that he isn't going to take either sides, as he doesn't want to play any role in this war. The hero immediately looks down at him and claims that it means he accepts that he is a Demon King accomplice, which means that he will die. Flio claims that he is not an accomplice, while the girls back him up, saying that he simply just doesn't want to take part in the fight. The hero looks at them and tells them that even though they should be considered traitors, he will excuse them if they can help him sway Flio's mind, otherwise all of them will die. Bali looks up and claims that she believes that Flio is right, as ever since birth she was also taught that the demons were evil and that they should be killed. But ever since she met Rise and the others, she realizes that they are not inherently bad and are also living beings with feelings. Flio looks at the hero and claims that he wouldn't fight against them, but at the same time he wouldn't stay here either. Rise claims that she will go with him, and all the girls agree. The hero thinks it's a joke, as there is no way he can run away from this army. But to his surprise, Flio simply uses his teleportation magic and transport his entire party alongside his house and his fields to a completely different location. The entire army is shocked at this, when suddenly the Demon King returns to meet with Bali. He looks at the army and realizes that they have uprooted Flio and his party, which pisses him off so much that he transforms into a demon and commands all of the demon army to attack the kingdom immediately and take control of the entire area, which scares away the hero. Meanwhile, Flio safely lands in a different stretch of land, and the girls are amazed to find all their fields intact. Rise tells everyone that to celebrate their new move, they are going to have a feast, and all of them go inside to help, not knowing that a war is going to happen very soon. The news gets to the king about the imminent attack on the kingdom, which completely bamboozles him. He asks his ministers about the current status, and they reply that the army has already infiltrated the entire northern forests and are continuously making progress. He asks about the location of the hero, but the minister replies that the hero got scared at the sight of the Demon King and ran away like a total bitch. The king knows that there are no other options if he wants to save the country, and orders the mages to prepare a huge purification magic spell to cast on the entire forest, which should kill or at least damage the majority of the demons. Meanwhile, the Demon King overlooks the mayhem he is causing in absolute anger, while Olmana asks how they should proceed further. Suddenly, two other underlings arrive with information, and the Demon King tells them all to order the troops back out of the jungle. Olmana is shocked at this, as they are making such quick progress, but the Demon King replies that the kingdom will most likely try to assemble all the mages it has to cast a purifying spell on them, so they need to make sure that their demons are safe from any attacks. On the other end, the mages assemble in huge proportions inside the palace and start chanting the purification spell, while the head wizard focuses his energy to make sure that the spell is powerful enough to kill most of the demons. After they are done powering up their magic, the head wizard directs it above the entire kingdom, as the magic circle completely covers the country and soon purifies everything in sight. Meanwhile, Flio returns back to their home from the nearby town, where he is greeted by Rise, who asks whether his trip was worthwhile. They sit down to have some lunch, where he tells the girls that right now he was unable to find any meaningful contacts to start a business, but tomorrow he is going to find out how much do armorers make in this town. Muscle Mommy interrupts and claims that she has been working on the fields for a while now and is pretty sure that she can sell them to make a profit and support the household expenses. The redhead archer also chimes in, claiming that she wants to be a horse breeder, and if she gets a stable and some horses, she can definitely make a lot of money to do her part for the house. Flio is intrigued by this, so she tells him that she was an apprentice horse groomer and loved working with them. Flio tells her that they can probably create a huge stable nearby, which makes her really happy. During all this, the wizard and Bali are sitting with their heads down, as they are completely skill-less and jobless just like me. Rise, however, tries to cheer them up and claims that they don't have to worry about anything, while Flio backs her up, claiming that they should focus on their combat abilities. The next day, the princess of the kingdom goes to visit the royal hospital, where some of the ministers start telling her that there is nothing to worry about right now, because with the help of the purification magic, they were able to drive away the demon army, and made sure that they can't come back for a month or two at least. The princess, however, is not satisfied or impressed, as she reminds the minister that literally all of the mages of the kingdom, including her own dad, the king, ended up expending all of their mana to create the spell, and now are totally out of commission for at least 2 or 3 months. They can't simply hope that the demon king will wait for that long, and must find an alternate way. She announces that since her father is no longer able to rule the kingdom at this moment, she will be the one who takes command. Everyone agrees to this, and asks what's her plan for now. She immediately replies that her first decree is to take away all the titles of the hero, as he is not fit to be called one. He was never brave, and even ran away at the sight of the demon king. This immediately come into effect, as later that evening the hero returns with her maid back to the kingdom, only to be stopped by a guard who informs him about the decision of the princess, and tells him to piss off wherever the hell he wants. The hero is obviously not taking this well, and tries to threaten the guard before begging for an audience with the princess, but the guard simply throws his belongings and goes away. Meanwhile, the next morning all the girls decide to thank Rise and Flio or their hospitality, and convinces them to go out on a date while they clean the entire house. Rise is overjoyed at this and immediately tugs Flio away into the town. They spend the entire day roaming around, eating food and having fun, when Flio realizes that he has never properly thanked Rise for always being with him. He tells her that he wants to buy her a gift, so she can choose whatever she likes. This makes her extremely happy, but the problem is that she has never received a gift before, and is confused on what could be appropriate as a gift. Her eye ends up landing on a jewelry cart as she starts looking at all the different pendants and brooches. The blue one catches her eye, while the seller lady tells her that it will look good on her. Flio immediately picks up the brooch and puts it on her, before claiming that she is very beautiful. After a successful day, they return back home, where Rise is completely smitten by the gift that Flio got him and keeps staring at it till late at night. After a while, Flio wakes up as he realizes that Rise got tired and ended up sleeping in her bed. He smiles and turns around before going back to sleep. Back inside the kingdom, the hero ends up infiltrating the castle and knocks out a bunch of guards to enter the royal treasury. He starts searching through a bunch of treasure as he tries to look for any magical item which might boost his powers and help him defeat the Demon King, which will get him the title of the hero back, and he could then live his life lavishly like before. While searching, he suddenly hears a voice calling out to him. This surprises him, but the voice calls him again towards the wall when suddenly a hidden chamber opens. This scares the maid, who claims that she can't hear anything. The hero realizes that the voice must be in his head, as it claims that it can grant any wish that the hero has. He walks inside the chamber and spots a sword stuck in the ground. The voice tells him to take it out, and after some effort he manages to pull it out, creating a huge whirlwind which throws him out the room. Suddenly, a djinn appears in front of him and asks what wishes he has, promising to fulfill any wishes. Meanwhile, the princess calls in the legendary oracle to figure out the best way to get rid of the Demon King problem. But before they could talk, suddenly a magical collar appears on almost every single person in the hall. This surprises them, as they have no idea what is the meaning of this. But the princess has read her history books and immediately realizes that this is the brand of sacrifice which can only be produced if someone made a wish to the jinn. Apparently hundreds of years ago, one of the king ended up asking the jinns help to deal with the Demon King, which resulted in the death of half the population in this country, as that was the payment for fulfilling the wish. She turns to the oracle and asks what they should do. The oracle starts flexing her blackjack skills as she tells he that they need to find the real hero who has already been summoned and ask him for his help. The people immediately realize that she must be talking about Flio, who has outright rejected the offer to help the king. The princess claims that she will meet with Flio personally and ask for his help. Meanwhile, Flio sells one of his dragon shields to an armorer at a pretty good price, and also establishes a trade route to sell further goods as well. He comes out of the shop and thanks Bali for showing him the shop, and they start walking back. Suddenly, Flio gets a warning about a jinn approaching him, and immediately the jinn appears behind him, introducing herself as Haya. It turns out that the imbecile hero's first wish was to kill Flio, as he thinks this will help him retain the hero status. The jinn immediately raises her hand to deal the death blow, But Rise immediately jumps in between and takes the deadly hit instead, bleeding from her chest, as she collapses to the ground, telling Flio to run. The Jinn immediately starts using a bunch of explosion magic on him at once, but they are of no use as Flio's auto defense is too strong. He tries to heal Rise's injuries but fails as the wounds are too deep. The Jinn decides to use a legendary class magic on him, which destroys everything around, but Flio remains scratchless. He puts the near-dead Rise to the ground, as he stands up seething with anger, claiming to destroy the Jinn and blast her into a million pieces for killing someone that he loves the most in this world. He thinks about all the things he and Rise have gone through till now and realizes that without having Rise, he doesn't really have any purpose in this world, that immediately discarded him because the king thought he was useless. He looks angrily at the Jinn, proclaiming that he is never going to forgive what she just did to someone he loves so dearly, and casts a time reversal spell on their position. Immediately the time starts turning back as the brooch that he got her repairs itself, and the bloody gash in her chest disappears, leaving Rise alive but unconscious. Haya is shocked at this sight as she doesn't have any idea how a mere mortal can use an extremely rare magic like time reversal, and realizes that she needs to take it seriously. She smirks at him and was going to ask who he really is, but before she could even complete her sentence, she gets punched in the face by Flio as she gets knocked down to the ground, completely bewildered at what just happened to her. Her nose starts bleeding as she angrily tells Flio that she will rip him apart. But Flio is in no mood to hear all this and stomps her to the ground with his feet, showing her what true gender equality means. He tells her to shut her dumb mouth up as he wants to enjoy her destruction. And hearing this, the Jinn immediately starts using a defensive spell to create a barrier in front of her. But Flio is on a different level entirely as grief pushes him to his edge, and he simply breaks through the barrier effortlessly as he grabs her head. He picks her up while she tries to check what kind of a monster she is dealing with, only to realize that all of Flio's stats and abilities have been maxed out to infinity. She can't believe her eyes as Flio slams her into a wall, and then starts pounding her with his punches before delivering an uppercut that would put Mike Tyson to shame. Meanwhile, Rise finally stirs awake to find herself surrounded by a huge crater and realizes that she has no wounds on her. Confused and dazed, he looks at Bali for an explanation, but she just replies that Flio saved her life and then directs her gaze towards the direction of the fight. Rise can't believe that her mild-mannered husband is punching and kicking a girl in the middle of the street just like the good old times. He punches her around for a while, which surprisingly makes Rise happy at first as she tells Bali to see how he is fighting for her. But soon she remembers how Flio told her that he hated fighting and doesn't want to hurt or kill anyone. Meanwhile, Flio punches her into a half-dead mess before grabbing her by the neck and picking her up in a chokehold. The Jinn pleads with him for forgiveness, but all the mercy has been drained out of him as he tells her that she is going to die. Just before he kills her though, Rise rushes behind and grabs him, pleading with him to let her go. This snaps him back to reality, and he loosens his grip and Haya falls down to the ground unconscious. He turns around and immediately grabs Rise's face to feel the warmth emanating from her, and a wave of relief swipes over him as he hugs her tightly, glad that she is okay. Meanwhile, the princess and her party gets teleported to the village where Flio is currently living as she thanks the mages to help her even after being so weak. She tells everyone to search in different areas when suddenly the seals on their necks break off completely. Everyone is relieved but surprised at why this happened as the princess wonders whether the Jinn failed to fulfill the wish. Back in the castle, the guards have completely surrounded the treasury where the hero cries about how the Jinn lied to him about killing Flio. Suddenly, a magical entity gets released from the chambers and possesses the body of his servant and starts laughing about how she has been locked up for ages now because of the Jinn. She immediately changes her clothes into something more appropriate as it's a man's world, and uses her magic to make the hero drop to his knees. She immediately uses her magic to transform him into a magical monster, who destroys the walls and starts walking up to the castle where she wants to take revenge on the royal family. She notices the faint remains of the teleport spell and decides to follow the mana to find the heir to the throne so she could kill them. Inside the village market, Flio starts healing the Jinn back to full health, and she slowly regains her consciousness only to get scared by Flio as she hides in the corner asking for mercy. He tells her not to worry as he will not hurt her. She seems confused and asks why would he ever heal her, and Flio calmly replies that he healed her because Rise is completely fine. Bali runs up to him and asks what does he think should be done with the Jinn as she can't be trusted to normal guards. He suggests that they might be able to seal her back inside the castle treasury like before, as he has recently gotten a number of new spells to use, one of them being mind reading. He claims to have used this spell on Haya to find out why she attacked him, and now he knows that she was ordered by the hero to do so. Haya is beyond shocked, as memory reading is something only the jinns can do, and no mortal has ever been gifted with the ability before. He claims that even if he seals her back in the castle treasury, there is still a chance that someone releases her, and it would again be a problem, so they need to find a more permanent solution. Rise jumps at this moment in front of them and claims that she has a solution, which is for Haya to become Flio's servant. Haya is shocked alongside Flio, who tries to stop her, but Rise tells him that this is the best way of making sure that no one misuses her again, and if a jinn joins them, their power will increase exponentially as a party. He looks down at her and asks if this is really something that she wants, as this jinn is the one who hurt her in the first place. Rise takes a deep breath and claims that it is hard to say, but at the end of the day she got injured because she was weak and failed to protect herself, so she forgives the jinn. At this point, Flio extends a hand to the jinn, asking her whether she would join him in his adventures and vow to never kill anyone. Haya is surprised, as mostly humans only work for their own greed, but this man seems to be exceedingly kind and has no bad intentions in his mind. She accepts his offer and stands up, vowing her life to him. He apologizes for beating her into a pulp before, as he lost hold of himself, but Haya tells him not to apologize, as she thinks about how exciting it was to get beaten up. Flio looks around to see the destroyed ground and houses and thinks about using the time reversal spell to fix everything, but the jinn tells him not to use time reversal ever again, because it has several repercussions that he has no idea about. She also tells him that he has a special ability which lets him use the entire spell library of any magician who attacks him, and that's why he is able to use mind reading and time reversal magic that are bound only to the jinns. She tells him to watch Interstellar to learn what happens when you mess with time, and tells her to use some other magic spell like the restoration magic. Later that evening, the party returns back to the house where the remaining girls were waiting on the couch. They all get shocked and terrified at the sight of a jinn in their house, while Flio explains that she had nowhere to go, so she will be staying with them. The archer is scared of the jinn and asks Bali whether it would be fine, but Bali simply tells her to shut up, as she tells Haya that her room has been made. Later that night, Flio enters the room to find Rise in a saddened state. He sits beside her and asks what's bothering her, when suddenly Rise climbs on top of him with tears in her eyes and asks whether he will return back to his own world now that he can use the magic of jinns. She clings to him tightly and tells him to take her with him, as she can never live alone. Flio calms her down and tells her that he will never return back to his normal world, and he can't take her with him anyways because the world is not fit for demihumans like her. He promises that he can't live without her anymore, which he realized today when she was almost lost to him. He looks in her eyes and asks her to marry him for real this time, as he only wants to spend his entire life with her. She obviously accepts the proposal and they start making out, but just as things were getting hot and heavy, they notice that Haya has been watching them go at it from door. Flio tells her to leave immediately, embarrassed, as she tells him that she is his servant and needs to know his position at all times. Flio tells her that he needs some private time as they bicker, while the girls downstairs who were listening to everything decide to get some sleep to prepare for the next adventure. A couple days pass by and the princess of the kingdom is still on the lookout for the fallen hero Flio, as she roams the entire village trying to gain information about his whereabouts, but no matter how much she tries, she keeps coming back empty-handed. Meanwhile, at the cottage, Haya has made herself at home as they all sit down on the breakfast table, which was prepared by Haya instead of Rise. The others seem to be pretty shocked to hear that a jinn can make food, but Haya claims that she can simply make food appear from thin air thanks to her magic, but Rise told her not to use magic if she wants her food to be eaten by Flio at all. That's why she made all the food with her own loving hands without using even a little bit of magic. She claims to have enjoyed the process and tells them that she could do that every day. But Rise replies that cooking and packing food for everyone is her job, so she could maybe help with the cleaning of the house. Haya immediately replies that she will clean the entire house spotless immediately, which manages to grab the girls' attention as they stop eating and think that more or less the only job they do is to clean the house. And if Haya starts doing that as well, they will become practically useless. After breakfast, Muscle Mommy quickly heads over to the field where she starts plowing the fields, adamant that she needs to prove herself to be as useful as possible as she doesn't want Haya to take over this job as well. The rabbit starts helping her as he transforms into the monster and starts digging the earth. Meanwhile, the redhead archer is working in the stables as she thinks about how she wanted to be a coachman but still is stuck on simply dealing with the horses to make sure they are in top shape. She doesn't mind this job, though, as she always had a soft spot for horses and they seem to like her back, as one of them starts licking her face, while the other one is a bit more forward and starts licking her entire backside, which makes her shudder with excitement, I guess. Back at the house, the mage is thinking about how both her father and her brother are royal mages right now, and she was en route to become one too when she joined the knights. But now that she has left the royal army to be with Flio, she doesn't really have a purpose in life as she can't become a royal mage anymore. She suddenly remembers how kindly Flio decided to help her train in the forest, and she managed to produce a fireball after following his instructions. She decides to work hard to become an excellent mage so that Flio's effort don't go to waste. Suddenly, they hear a loud scream from outside that seems to be the Muscle Mommy, so both Archer and the mage exit the cottage only to find a huge purple-colored horse with a horn on his head completely destroying the fields as he goes crazy in the area. The mage asks whether it's a horse, but the redhead replies that it's not just a normal horse, but a magical creature who seems to be pretty strong. Suddenly, the magical beast decides to attack the girls, but thankfully the mage is quick on her feet and manages to create a shield wall with her magic, protecting both herself and the archer. Finally, Bali arrives in the area and asks whether anyone got hurt. She apologizes for this, as it turns out that she was in the forest, practicing by herself, and was fighting this magical beast. The horse seemed pretty docile and harmless, which made her drop her guard, and just then the beast escaped and entered inside their fields. She takes out her sword ready to lay waste to the beautiful creature, but Muscle Mommy shouts from the other end, begging her not to kill him. The archer agrees and claims that there's a better way as she tells the monster to become a rabbit again. She grabs a spike and some rope which she throws towards the beast, who catches it between his teeth, flinging the archer on his back. The archer starts riding the horse as it goes crazy, but slowly she manages to bring him under control as she whispers kind words in his ears softly, which helps him calm down. The other girls are surprised by her ability to tame such a deadly and rabid beast, but she claims that most of these animals are simply misunderstood and not dangerous. Meanwhile, Flio and Rise are basically on a date inside the town, as Flio wanted to sell some of the things that he recently crafted. Rise seems to be pretty happy to finally be alone with Flio as she grabs his hand, thankful that they are now truly married and can flirt as much as they want. Soon Flio enters the store while Rise waits outside and starts talking to the store owner before producing the newly crafted vest made up of salamander skin. The owner remarks how a salamander skin clothing is very rare and it's excellent for women because of how lightweight it is. Following that, the owner starts showing him some of the magic gemstones he recently acquired while Rise watched him from the window, still unable to believe that they are truly married. Suddenly, a dark cloud covers the entire area as winds start blowing and people wonder what's happening. Suddenly, a magic circle appears, and through it emerges a huge monster alongside the witch as they descend from the sky, scaring all the commoners into a rabid frenzy. The princess is also in the area and immediately gets surrounded by her guards, but the witch notices her and the monster smacks the guards away. Flio immediately comes out to make Rise is safe as she explains how a monster emerged from the magic circle. While they were trying to find a place to hide, Haya appears in the area as well, as she claims that she sensed a huge amount of dark evil energy, so she rushed to make sure they are safe. She tells them that the monster is a human that was converted into a beast by the witch whose name is Dama. She was one of the strongest witches of her time and managed to conquer the entire area where she ruled as she dabbled into dark magic to achieve greatness. Finally, a legendary hero came and defeated her, but even after her body died, her spirit was so strong that they were forced to seal it in the pedestal where the sword was kept in which Haya was sealed. She turns around to Flio and asks permission to destroy this woman who is laying waste to the town and killing innocents. Flio gives her the go-ahead to fight while he turns towards Rise and tells her that they should help by evacuating the town and making sure no one gets hurt. Meanwhile, Dama finally cornered the princess as one poor knight stood in front of her valiantly in an effort to defend the future queen of the kingdom. Suddenly, a huge explosion rattles the monster, and the witch gets shocked at the power that she just experienced. She looks down surprised to see Haya the Jinn coming to the princess's defense. This unexpected problem annoys Dama as she badmouths Haya for not being able to complete her wish as she flies up in the air and uses an incredibly powerful spell to try and kill her. To her absolute horror, the Jinn merely uses one arm to completely nullify her spell. In reply to this, Dama sends the monster to try and crush her, while she uses dark magical lances to try and attack. Haya is unfazed by all this as she simply blocks both the attacks, blasting the monster into the ground, while Dama comes down to the ground as well, pissed off at the situation. She angrily uses one of her most destructive spells, which breaks the ground in two as it leeches dark energy out of the earth and puts it inside the monster, who grows even bigger and more grotesque by the second. The monster starts moving ahead as the princess looks in horror, when suddenly the magic circle powering the beast breaks and the monster returns back to its normal size. Haya apologizes for making him take part in the battle and turns around angrily at the witch, who she completely destroys as she takes out the spirit from the body of the servant and transforms it into a tiny ball, which she then eats, claiming that she will properly discipline the witch. After the battle was over, the princess rushes up to Flio and asks whether he was the hero who got wrongfully exiled by her dad and introduces herself as Princess Liz. But she claims that she ended up dismissing the hero from his position because of his problematic behavior and incompetence, and wants Flio to take that position as the kingdom is in grave danger. He thanks her for the offer, but at the same time he claims that the kingdom should be defended by someone who wouldn't hesitate to fight for humans. Soon they return back to the cottage where the girls are eagerly waiting for him. They claim to have an idea in their mind and wanted his permission to execute it. They claim that they want to buy the nearby land and expand their property so that they can start a business of their own. Flio smiles and claims that he will negotiate with the Lord. They are overjoyed at it, and by the next day the land is bought and they start working at it. All seems to be going well as Flio and Rise look upon as the sun sets. Flio suddenly takes out a ring which he crafted from a rare gemstone and puts it on Rise's fingers, claiming that it's a wedding ring. Rise is overjoyed as she hugs him tightly, waiting for the adventures to come their way. A couple days pass by when one night Bali starts having a nightmare in which she wakes up on an altar, dressed entirely in black and surrounded by the unknown darkness of a place that she doesn't know. She looks around confused when suddenly Ulmana appears in front of her as she welcomes her to the castle. Bali is immediately surprised and terrified to find a general of the demon army in front of her and asks what is she doing here and where the hell is she. Ulmana calmly replies that she is the bride-to-be as they are going to have a royal wedding today. Before she could even process the information, the demon lord walks out of the shadows as he professes his love for Bali and walks up to her in the groom's dress. Bali is utterly terrified of him, but he brings her close to him and tells her that she looks beautiful and how lucky he is to marry her. Ulmana quickly claims that as a wedding gift to her, Gaz has decided to conquer the entire world and put it on fire so that it starts anew with him as the king and her as the queen of this world. Bali is horrified at this statement and tells him that she doesn't want the world to be destroyed, but the demon lord claims that it's too late for that and starts trying to kiss her, which snaps her out of the dream as she sits up in the cold night with sweat dripping from her body. She thinks about the nightmare she had, but at the same time deep inside, she liked it a little bit and starts getting confused about her feelings completely, while the other girls tell her to shut up so that they can sleep. The next morning she wakes up and starts preparing breakfast alongside Rise when she notices that Bali seems to be working pretty slow and she looks exhausted. Rise asks whether everything is okay, and Bali replies that she is just a little sleep deprived because of the dreams she has been having, which seem like a nightmare to her. Hearing this, like any other rational person, Rise immediately jumps to the conclusion that Bali is in love, which shocks and embarrasses her as she tries to deny it. Rise grabs her hands and claims that in the case of demon wolves, they start having dreams about the person they love, even if they don't know it yet, which makes it look like a nightmare, even though it's not. She looks embarrassed but confused as Rise repeats that she must be in love. This is heard by the girls as they all run into the kitchen and ask who is she in love with. But a red-faced Bali tells them that she is not in love with anyone and all of it is just a stupid dream. The girls, however, are not satisfied and want the tea, so they start thinking about the people she might like and end up on the conclusion that it must be the Demon King who she ended up liking. Bali immediately denies it, claiming that she doesn't like him at all, and moreover, he probably hates her for being a human. But the girls remember that he used to come to their place pretty often just so that he can spend some time with her, and it was very obvious. Bali denies it, claiming that he just was coming to meet with Flio, and was trying to find Bali with her guard down so that he can strike her down. The girls, however, have decided what is the story that they prefer more, as Muscle Mommy tells her that she should steal the Demon King's heart completely, and that way even she can live alongside him, just like how Rise and Flio live together even though they belong to different races. Suddenly, the Jinn gets curious and asks Rise about how and why she fell in love with Flio, and she replies that there isn't really one particular point, but he was very kind to begin with, which is usually considered a weakness amongst the monsters, but he was strong at the same time and easily defeated her. This, alongside his cordial nature, made her fall in love with her. Flio ends up hearing all this, which makes both of them embarrassed. While Flio's party was jacking off at the other side of the kingdom without any care, the princess and all the royals were worried, as they have no idea what to do against the demon army. Suddenly, one of the ministers runs up to her and claims that the gold that Flio gave them for the reconstruction of the city is the special golden coins that were only given to the heroes. This was very confusing when the princess puts 2 and 2 together and realizes that Flio must be the first hero that was summoned to this world. But because his stats were low, he was kicked out with some gold. After that, he must have changed his name and appearance to look how he looks right now. She realizes now why he doesn't want to take the position of the hero now, and feels very embarrassed about how they treated him when he was summoned here. Suddenly, a guard runs in the court and tells the princess that the disgraced hero alongside her big-thighed servant have escaped the prison and have made a run for it. Princess tells him to ready the guards and send them on a search for them while she decides what to do with the situation against the Demon King. Meanwhile, the golden-haired imbecile hides in the bushes alongside his servant while the guards search for them. She tells the hero that her legs are tired and she couldn't run anymore, and now not only are they fugitives, but also robbers, as the hero decided to steal some treasure from the royal treasury. The hero claims that it was owed to him, as he was promised gold beyond his imagination once his job was done. But sadly, all he could find before running was a magic bag. He searches through the bag to find a chest and eagerly opens it expecting gold, only to find an old-looking shovel. Suddenly, the guards hear some noise from that area and run up to check, but don't find anything there. It turns out that the shovel was a royal treasure and can dig a hole very quickly, as the hero looks above, wondering how they'll get out of here. Back at the Demon King's castle, Ulmana brings in the report that they are unable to find Flio and his party yet, and suggests that they should focus their attention on the invasion instead, as they are very close to completely destroying the royal kingdom that has tried to suppress them for so long. She claims that even though the land has been purified, the castle has used all its best mages and probably cannot spare any now, so they should push with their army to march on the capital and take it down. It will definitely result in some deaths of the demons that enter the purified region, but their sacrifice will weaken the defenses and lead them to victory. Gaz tells her to keep searching, as Flio can't leave the kingdom and must be somewhere around, and they need to find him because he alone can also use purification magic if he wants to. Ulmana looks at him and tells him that she thinks it's a waste of time, when the demon lord stands up and starts walking up to her and stretches his arm out before patting her on the head, claiming that she doesn't want to sacrifice any more of his army than needs be. This all is heard by a strange woman who turns out to be Gaz's brother's right hand, as she tells him everything that she heard. The brother named Sui angrily smashes his hand on the table, which makes the woman fall to the ground, as he claims that his brother is going soft and calls his decision to try and enlist a human in their army to be a disgrace. He smashes his seat again as a piece of rock hits the woman, and she falls down again bleeding, while Sui stands up and claims that it's time they had a new king and exclaims that he is going to snatch the throne away from his brother and lead the demon army to victory. While this all is happening, Flio is out with Rise in the market buying some new ingredient for a dish that she wanted to make. Flio seems to be in a good mood and asks Rise whether she wants to have lunch together, which immediately brightens up her mood as she gets some extra alone time with him and she grabs his arm. They start walking when they spot the shop of an old lady who seems to be shutting down. They ask what happened, and she claims that she can't find suppliers anymore because the war has reached the villages nearby since the last attack and the area has been destroyed. This saddens both of them as they realize that there is no running away from the war. They start walking once again when Flio appreciates how resilient humans can be, as a lot more shops are opening in the area as well. Just before they were entering the restaurant, Bali runs up to them and claims that she wants to treat them to lunch as she ranked up in the Adventurers Guild thanks to their training. Flio is happy while Rise is disappointed as she wanted some alone time. They all decide to head inside to celebrate when Haya flies up to him, claiming that she sensed a very strong demon's presence nearby and they should back off. But Rise stops her, and to their surprise, the demon turns out to be Gaz himself, who warmly greets them. They all head inside and sit down on the lunch table as Bali feels scared while Gaz comments on how pretty she looks today. He tells Flio that he often came here because he liked to get more information about the humans, and also because their food is amazing. This triggers Bali, who asks whether he is here to gather more information on humans so he could crush them, and he honestly replies that he is. This pisses her off, but Flio tells her to calm down. Gaz claims that humans and demons can't stay together because they can't control not getting affected by each other. Haya explains that lower-level demons always radiate a special dark mana that poisons the air for human, which makes it unlivable for them. And while higher-ranked demons like Rise and Gaz can control it, many can't. Moreover, some demons are born with bloodlust and all they want to do is fight, which makes the option of coexistence that much more problematic. After saying that, he gets up and bids them goodbye before leaving, while Bali looks at her plate, unable to understand her own feelings. After finishing the meal, they meet up with the rest and start walking back as the sun sets, while Flio thinks about how happy he was to find out that demi-humans were not treated as slaves in this world, but realizes that everything can't be perfect. This triggers him to hug Rise from behind as he tells her how much he loves her, as fear starts creeping inside him, making him realize that he might be forced to pick a side sooner rather than later in this horrible war. The next day, Rise cooks some delicious-looking meat patties for Flio and the girls. Everyone is amazed by the deliciousness of the meat, and they remark that it is even better than what they serve at restaurants. Suddenly, someone comes knocking at the door and Flio goes outside to receive them. To his surprise, it is the princess and her guards. Rise also comes outside, and then Flio asks the princess what is she doing here, because he has already told her in the past that he is not interested in being the hero. The princess says that today, she is here to apologize to Flio for summoning him into this world and then discarding him when he showed no significant ability. Both Flio and Rise are shocked to learn that their secret has been revealed. After that, they welcome the princess inside and Bali serves her tea, while sucking up to her. The princess thanks her, and Bali is moved by the slightest bit of her attention. The princess then asks Bali and other girls to leave as she wants to talk to Flio in private. Rise objects to that, saying that until now the kingdom has treated her husband very poorly, so she won't leave him alone with the princess now. Flio also holds her hand and tells the princess that she can send everyone away, but his wife will stay with him. He clearly declares that if it is something that the princess cannot tell him in the presence of his wife, she should simply return to her palace. Rise is elated to hear that, but she returns her focus to the meeting quickly. The princess accepts the condition, and Flio signals all the girls to leave the room. Once they are left alone, the princess falls to her knees and apologizes wholeheartedly on the behalf of the kingdom. She says that the spells they placed on his bag, and the act of banishing him to the dangerous forest are their greatest sins. Flio tells her to raise her head because she is not talking to a hero, but to an ordinary merchant right now. The princess asks him if he won't accept her apology, but he tells her that it won't change anything. He urges her to come to the point, because she wouldn't have come here all the way to apologize. The princess tells him that he is right, and then lays out a magic map in front of him. There are some glowing dots on the map that indicate the position of the kingdom's army. The princess tells him that the effect of the purification spell cast around the castle will wear down soon, and then the demon army will put more strength into their invasion. She says that their mages have not fully recovered their magic, and they don't have enough troops to protect all the towns either. She plans to station her troops only at the most strategic locations, but that will leave a lot of towns unguarded. The princess requests Flio to take up the job of protecting all those unguarded towns, and he is left speechless. Rise snaps at the princess and questions her audacity to drag Flio into their war when he is a person who hates violence. The princess says that the king who used the purification magic will recover soon, and when he does that, he will probably send an army after Flio and Rise, accusing them of working with demons. This pisses off Rise, and she asks the princess if she is trying to threaten them by any chance. She replies that she plans to do the opposite. She explains that while she is still the temporary ruler, she has enough power to bring the former king to justice for disrespecting Flio and appointing the fake hero. She plans to make him give up his throne, and for that, she wants Flio's help. The princess says that the king is an arrogant asshole, and she wants to do better after taking the throne from him. But for that, she must have to prove that she can lead the army more efficiently than him, and that is where she needs Flio to help her. Rise snaps at her again, but Flio stops her. He has figured out the princess's true plan. Rise doesn't understand it, so he explains it step by step to her. He tells her that the princess showed him the location of their troops on the map because she trusts him. She wants him to keep this information only to himself to prove to the world that he is not going to join the demon army. The princess admits that he is right, and adds that she also wants to save the towns as well. She once again requests Flio to help her. On the other hand, the former hero and his thick servant are still on the run. They are hiding behind the bushes, and the girl suddenly starts crying because she is feeling hungry. The former hero takes out some cookies from the magic bag and gives them to her. He then asks her why is she still following him after all this, and she has the same question for him too. She knows that she is just dead weight, and he would be able to escape more easily if he ditched her. He is flustered on hearing this, and then the girl says that the moment he broke them out of the prison cell was pretty cool. She keeps praising him, saying that he has his moments every now and then, and he starts blushing. He gets up and tells her to hurry along, when suddenly a black spider creeps next to her. The spider squirts some web and ties up the girl. Before the disgraced hero can help her, he is also tied by the spider web. A goth demon mommy comes there and says that she found some good-looking specimens to sacrifice for her next experiment, freaking both of them out. Back at Flio's home, he lies in the bed at night, thinking about his discussion with the princess earlier. Rise notices him lost in thoughts, so she comes over to his bed. He tells her that while he hates fighting, he can't stand the thought of small towns being in danger as well. He adds that he has been thinking that if he and Rise have kids of their own someday, he wants them to live happily alongside the children of both humans and demons. He gives MLK's "I have a dream" speech about that, but realizes that it is almost impossible to make that dream come true. Rise, however, is confident that if anyone can make that impossible dream true, it is Flio. She holds his hand, promising to always help him in whatever way she can, and he thanks her with a smile. Soon after that, the demon army attacks the kingdom, and people flee their towns and villages. One girl is left behind as she was playing in the forest, when suddenly, the demons arrive there. She fears for her life, but just as a demon is about to attack her, Flio arrives there, riding Rise and wearing a wolf mask. Rise hits away the demon, and then Flio gets down to use a protective barrier spell to keep the demons at bay. He tells the girl to run away, and she obeys. Rise is not happy that Flio agreed to the princess's request without even asking for compensation. But he says that if he asked for money, news about him being a gold digger would spread. He claims that the moment he agreed to hear the princess's request, he already lost the battle of wits. That freaks Rise out, because in her culture if a man loses to a woman, she can forcefully make him her husband. Flio tries convincing her that it won't happen, while the demons demand to know why a demon wolf is working with humans. Flio tells them that they are the protectors of this town, and tell the demons to retreat peacefully if they don't want to be dead. The demons are arrogant and tell him to not underestimate their power, but Rise reminds them that they can't even cross his barrier. Just then, the boss of the demons arrives there. He is a giant red cyclops, wielding a heavy club. Rise tells Flio that the Cyclops clan is among the strongest types of demons, who directly serve the demon lord's brother. The Cyclops looks at Rise and taunts her, saying that her brother was too weak to be a demon general and it is a good thing he died. Rise is angry now, and she asks Flio to leave the Cyclops to her. She says that she won't let her brother's death defame their proud clan, and as his sister, she will reclaim their name and show who is the strongest demon clan to everyone. Flio says that he has no right to stop her since it is a personal matter, but he still asks her to not kill the demons. She agrees and exits the barrier. The Cyclops swings his heavy club at her, destroying trees with each swing, but he is too slow and Rise easily avoids all his attacks. He keeps chasing her, and she uses her superior agility to deal small wounds to him repeatedly. The Cyclops asks her if she thinks this will be enough to defeat him. Rise tells him that if she was her old self, she would have already torn him to pieces. But after meeting Flio, she has learnt to control her power. She tells the Cyclops to be grateful to her husband because he doesn't want him dead, and then activates a skill to leap high in the air. With her next skill, she switches positions with the Cyclops, making him free fall. He eats his club towards her, but that turns out to be a rookie error as Rise exchanges their positions again. The Cyclops is hit in the head by his own club, and then Rise decides to finish him off. She is floating 4 trees in the air with her magic, and then uses the gravity magic to accelerate them towards him. She hits the 4 bite wounds she had given the Cyclops earlier, and nails him to the ground with that. The Cyclops asks his minions to attack her, but Flio uses his magic to restrain all the demons instantly. Rise says that he should have let her deal with all of them, but Flio says that they have already won, and he has seen how strong she is. He then heals the Cyclops, who gets confused about his motive. Flio tells him that he is just doing this so that he can go back to their home peacefully. He then activates a lightning magic to intimidate the demons, and says that if they don't leave by their own will, he can send them back by force. Everyone starts trembling with fear, and soon they run away. With that, Flio can take down the barrier he had cast, and he remarks that it is a good thing they succeeded. Rise hugs him, and says that all the practice they did at home paid off. Earlier, Rise had taught Flio that the most important thing in a fight is pressure. She told him to be confident and overbearing to scare the demons, and it really worked. Rise, however, wonders if this was the best way. She believes that breaking all bones of the demons would be a better way to make sure they don't return again. Flio agrees that she is right, but he believes that this method would only aggravate the hatred between humans and demons. Just then, the townspeople come there to thank Flio for saving them, but they are concerned about the demonic wolf with him. He assures them that the wolf is his partner. The girl they saved also comes to thank them. Flio reveals that they are here at the request of the princess, and they should thank her instead of them. With that, he gets back on Rise, and they ride out to the next town. Soon, the news about a masked adventurer and his wolf partner scaring off demons reaches the princess. The princess realizes that the adventurer is none other than Flio, and her heart is full of gratitude for him now. She thinks that he has done a lot for them, and this time, she must pay him back. Meanwhile, Flio and Rise are at their job of scaring the demons away. Demon Lord Gaz is watching over them, and he is not happy that his brother Sui sent the troops here without his permission. Just then, one of his servants comes there and informs him that Sui has staged a coup and already captured the throne room. In the Demon King's throne room, Sui sits on the throne, while the goth mummy that works for him shows him the 2 humans she has kidnapped. She tells him that everything is ready, and when Gaz comes to face them, she will sacrifice the 2 humans to the demon god to perform a secret technique that is sure to defeat even him. Sui waits for his brother eagerly, thinking that after he defeats him, the title of the Demon King will be his. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe for part 10, and make sure to check out this brand new anime about a gamer who gets transported to a new world and becomes the strongest hero.